a curiosity about each character from One Piece. Yes, I know that making this video is completely crazy because in One Piece there are so many characters. But as you know, I'm really crazy, I love One Piece, I love making long videos, and this one will be no exception. So get ready, because you are going to watch a super complete video commenting on a curiosity about each One Piece character. I will mention a couple of rules that are necessary for the video. First of all, I will only comment on characters that are canon. Then, obviously, certain characters that pass in the background are very secondary or have no curiosity. I won't be able to bring them because they don't have enough importance in the series to properly have a curiosity, so it's impossible. And I will also follow these curiosities as the characters appear in the plot. To tell you that obviously this kind of video takes a lot of work, so I would really appreciate a big like and for you to subscribe to the channel right now, and let me know in the comments if you've put the video on in the background for something, which is probably the case. Let me know in the comments for what. I know many of you play it while eating, while going to sleep, while on your way to work, cleaning, taking care of your child, whatever it is, let me know in the comments. And now, I'll be quiet, and let's start with the video of one curiosity for each One Piece character. Let's go with the first one, and it's that the original idea for the King of the Pirates was that his characteristic mustache was actually made of nasal hair. In other words, it was originally conceived that Goldie Roger's emblematic mustache was the hair from his own nose. And now here it would be time to put a curiosity about Monkey D. Luffy, but being the protagonist, has a ton of curiosities, and I'm sure you know one, so I want you to leave me right now in the comments the strangest curiosity you know about Monkey D. Luffy. Show me that you are a good fan of the series and that you know some very random trivia. Leave it in the comments and let's continue. Kobe owes his name to a color, specifically to a soft and warm shade of pale pink. This explains why this character's hair is pink. Alveida's old ship, called Miss Love Duck, references the children's story of the ugly duckling. In that tale, a very ugly duckling transforms into a beautiful swan, symbolizing Alveida's transformation after consuming the Sube Sube no Mi fruit, which made her slender and attractive. In 2005, an album was released with original songs performed by the voices of the main characters of One Piece. In this album, the voice actor of Roronoa Zoro sings character-specific songs, such as Zoro's Eye or Zoro's Spirit. Nami will never have a romantic relationship with any member of the Straw Hats. The author himself, Eiichiro Oda, creator of the One Piece manga, clarified that he will not address the topic of romance within the crew because his main audience is young boys, who generally are not very interested in romantic plots. In the censored version by 4Kids, the American version, the onigiri, which are rice balls that Rika gives to Zoro, were replaced by cookies. This is one of the modifications made to adapt the series for a children's audience in that market. Helmeppo had a pet named Zoro, a dog or a wolf or something like that. And in the original manga, this pet was cut in two by Roronoa Zoro, although in the anime they softened the scene by having Zoro hit it with a chair. Helmeppo's representative animal, symbolically assigned to the character, is the African wild dog. Interestingly, these animals are distinguished by their bravery and teamwork, and survive thanks to cooperation, courage, and loyalty within the pack. Initially, Captain Morgan was going to be an even more eccentric version of his son Helmeppo, both in personality and appearance. However, after one of Oda's editors mocked that original design, Oda decided to redesign Morgan to look much more serious and much more intimidating. Yukari, the Marine who lightly taps Morgan's statue in Shellstown, turns out to be the lowest ranking member within the Navy shown in One Piece. He is a simple recruit in training and a simple sailor who has never even completed his basic instruction. The name Kina comes from a bird that cannot fly. This serves as a metaphor for her aspirations. Although a bird does not fly, it does not mean it can never do so, reflecting Kina's desire to overcome her limitations. The Marine who interrogates Kobe about his relationship with the Straw Hat Pirates appeared in a Japanese newspaper ad inviting young people to join the Navy. In that ad, those who wished to pursue justice and bring peace to the Great Pirate Era were encouraged, indicating that applications could be submitted at any time and at any Navy headquarters. Shanks was originally left-handed, which means that after losing his left arm, he became one of the most powerful pirates in the world using his weak hand, the right. Perhaps that's why Dracule Mihawk is no longer interested in dueling with him. Yasopp likes to eat seafood like lobsters, crabs, shrimp. And all this without removing the shell or the casing. That is, he eats these sea animals whole with everything, with the shell and all. The mayor of Monkey D. Luffy's village, Uop Slap, has had more voice actors in the anime than any other canonical character to date. In total, he has been portrayed by 3 different Sayus throughout the series. The pirate Lucky Rose from Shanks' crew is inspired by a pirate from the manga Captain Harlock, named Yadarin. This reference pays homage to the classic space pirate series in the character's design. Until the end of the East Blue Saga, Ben Beckman was the character with the highest intelligence quotient in the entire series. Oda revealed this fact in one of the early question and answer sections, an SBS, highlighting the cunning and wisdom of Shanks' first mate. The giant bird that captures Luffy at the beginning of Buggy the Clown's arc is called Pinkin. More than 700 episodes later, there is a humorous reference to this scene when Hagaram fears that a monstrous bird will fly by and kidnap Vivi in a similar way. In 2021, some scientists discovered a gene in a species of fly that produces a protein divisible into several parts. Since they were fans of One Piece, they named this gene with Bara Ain in honor of the Bara Bara no Mi fruit of Buggy, whose power separates the body into parts, making a reference to what they had just discovered. Choo Choo, the guard dog of Orangetown, is 14 years old, and if we convert it to dog years, it would be a very advanced age. However, since the rules of nature are not the same in the world of One Piece, he probably still has a lot of life ahead of him. Moji, Buggy's beast tamer, had many different initial designs before Oda decided on the final one. In one of these preliminary sketches, he looked like a panda, and in another, he had a much more pronounced appearance with a lion theme. Cabby makes a curious cameo in a short story drawn by Oda. In this Christmas tale, Buggy's crew steals the gifts that Santa Claus left for some children. When the children wake up, they shout that someone took their toys and all their food. Buggy claims that they did not take the food, and in the final panel, the true culprits are revealed. Some members of Gold D. Rogers' Pirate King's crew have code names related to precious metals in English. For example, Roger himself represents gold, hence gold. His first officer is Silver's Rayleigh, which alludes to silver, and there is Copper Gaban, which refers to copper by the word copper. If the Straw Hat Pirates were not pirates, Usopp would be a graphic designer. This information comes from Oda's comments about possible alternative professions for the characters in the real world. Django is the protagonist of a short film called Django Dance Carnival. In this musical short, the hypnotist makes all the people on an island dance and even performs a routine very similar to those of Michael Jackson, parodying the style of the famous artist. The name Kaya means rich in Malay and Indonesian. It makes sense considering that Kaya is a young woman from a wealthy family in the story. Each member of Usopp's small crew in the Shiro village is named after a vegetable in Japanese. For example, Ninjin means carrot, Tamanegi means onion, and Piman means pepper. On the cover of chapter 1100 of the manga, Usopp is shown remembering these friends when he sees Sanji cooking using precisely these ingredients: carrots, onions, and peppers. The butler Kama's jacket, Kura Hadol, alias Kuro, has strange symbols on the sides. Eiichiro Oda humorously explained that these symbols represent poop, that is, feces. A visual joke hidden in the suit. We already know how Oda is with jokes. The man unjustly accused of being Captain Kuro is named Nugire Jainao. This name is an anagram of the Japanese phrase Nuragino Ja, which ironically means he does not like false accusations. The original flag hoisted on the Going Merry, the first ship of the Straw Hat Pirates, was a personal Jolly Roger of Merry, the carpenter who designed the ship. This flag showed a cartoon of Merry's face with the word Go underneath. In the 4th episode of the animated series Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, a carousel called Going Merry Go is shown. The logo of this carousel features the ram's head from the figurehead of the Going Merry as a fun nod to One Piece. Eiichiro Oda stated that Gaimon, the man trapped in a chest, was his favorite character in the year 2001. This curious choice reveals the author's affection for this peculiar character from the early chapters. Who doesn't like Gaimon? Full Body is the only known Marine who has been demoted in rank, going from lieutenant to simple recruit. He lost his position due to poor performance, something very unusual among Marine officers. Oda even named the insect that Full Body crushes during his introduction at the Barati. He called it Bachi, thus adding a small comedic detail to that scene. A fan asked Oda what policies Sanji would have if he became president of a country, and Oda responded that Sanji would pass extremely preferential laws in favor of women and discriminate against men. This would provoke a rebellion from the male population against him, and Sanji would end up losing the position shortly after. An image of Yosaku, the bounty hunter friend of Zoro, was used in a primary school science textbook in France to explain how citrus fruits can be used to treat diseases like scurvy. Thus, a One Piece character unexpectedly appeared in real-life educational material. Zeph, the head chef of the Barati, cut off his right leg because he always used his left to support himself when kicking. In other words, he sacrificed the leg he considered less essential for his fighting style, keeping the one that provided stability when executing his powerful kicks. Panda Man is a recurring character who appears in many episodes of One Piece as a hidden cameo. You've probably seen him more than once without realizing it. Many of his attributes are related to the number 3, which is pronounced san in Japanese, a nod that even connects with the Japanese word for bamboo, sasa, which sounds like sa-sa. This affinity with the number 3 is even reflected in his fictional bounty poster. Gin's favorite food is the rice pilaf prepared by Sanji. Apparently the dish that Sanji cooked for him at the Barati became his favorite. Don Krieg was originally going to be a type of cyborg in Oda's sketches, with the provisional name Krieg 9000. That is, initially he was thought to be a kind of mechanical villain, but Oda ultimately presented him simply as a very well-armed human. Initially, Draculae Mihawk's title was going to be the Clairvoyant instead of Hawkeye's. Oda considered that nickname to highlight his exceptional vision, although he ultimately chose the hawk reference for the swordsman's final name. Arlong, who is the second character with the largest nose in One Piece, is only surpassed by another character. His prominent saw-shaped nose is quite a record in the series, making him stand out physically among many other characters. Hatchin was originally going to be a fish woman, and in the initial concepts, her name was going to be Maple Reed, but then Oda changed his mind and made him the male fishman octopus we know. Mumo, the sea monster that serves Arlong, is actually not a sea king, but simply a giant marine mammal. Despite its colossal size and fearsome appearance, technically it does not belong to the same category as the enormous beasts known as sea kings. In the censored anime version by 4Kids, Belmare's fate is altered. Instead of showing that she was executed by Arlong, this version changes her outcome to Belmare being imprisoned for life, implying that Nami's mom was still alive in that dub. This is Sam, a resident of Nami's village in Kokoyashi. When Sam's eldest daughter was 8 years old, his wife left them, leaving him in charge of his 2 girls. Over the years, Sam raised his daughters on his own, and after the defeat of Arlong and the destruction of Arlong Park, Sam is seen celebrating euphorically. Later it is revealed that, in fact, before Arlong's fall, Sam was already drunk because he had come from his daughter's wedding, who had gotten married that same day. Smoker is the first main character in the series who had to be voiced by a different actor in the anime. His original voice actor, Ginzo Matsuo, passed away in August 2001, and the role of Smoker was one of his last works. Starting from episode 94, Smoker's voice was taken over by the anime's narrator, Mahito Oba. In Japan, the act of taking or keeping someone else's sword is interpreted as a declaration that its original bearer was not worthy of wielding it. Toshigi was applying this idea by confiscating the katanas of the criminals she defeats, implying that these swordsmen did not deserve their weapons. Minatomo is a carpenter who was born as a joke character created by Oda to explain a continuity error in the first chapter of the manga. In that initial story, a door of Makino's tavern appears intact minutes after Higumo destroyed it. Oda invented Minatomo, who was a carpenter that repaired doors very quickly to humorously justify that continuity. Curiously, Minatomo is the only canonical character who has appeared in the anime but not in the manga. Sabi is the first known person who is a hybrid between a human and a fishman. This character demonstrates that in the world of One Piece, offspring between both races is possible, something uncommon and practically unseen until their appearance. Monkey D, Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, is inspired by the real-life revolutionary Fidel Castro. His appearance and role as the leader of a global insurgency in the world of One Piece are very reminiscent of the Cuban leader. Crocus owes his name to a genus of flowering plants called crocus. These flowers closely resemble the plant that Crocus wears on his head, thematically connecting his design with his name. Laboon's favorite food is giant squids. This enormous whale especially enjoys feasting on large-sized cephalopods. In 2002, an audio drama titled The Great Adventure of Vivi the Pirate was released. This story presents an alternate reality in which Vivi becomes a pirate and joins the Straw Hats instead of staying in Arabasta. In the tale, Vivi ends up with a bounty of 50 million berries. Shortly after, the crew is shipwrecked on a jungle island and begins a new adventure, although it is ultimately revealed that the entire story is just a dream of Luffy. Before speaking, Higaran always says, "No, no, no." That peculiar verbal tick is actually a vocal warm-up exercise similar to what opera singers do before a performance. The Lakeys, the pair of animal agents from Baroque Works, probably got their theme from the superstition that Friday the 13th is an unlucky day. Miss Friday is a vulture symbolically associated with death, and Mr. 13 is an otter. This animal is related to the number 13 because, interestingly, there are 13 known species of otters in the world. Miss Katerina was an agent of Baroque Works, whom we briefly see in Whiskey Peak. In the censored version of the anime, they removed her nun outfit, the religious habits, and dressed her in common clothes to avoid offending sensitivities. Mr. 5 is inspired by the musician Lenny Kravitz. In fact, Lenny Kravitz's 5th album is titled 5, which fits perfectly with this agent's alias, Mr. 5. Miss Monday is still living in Whiskey Peak after the dissolution of Baroque Works. Over time, she had a child with Mr. 9, showing that both former agents formed a family after the events of Arabasta. Karoo, Vivi's pet duck, and his species, the super running ducks, are inspired by the chocobo, fictional birds from the Final Fantasy series. Both Karoo and the chocobo are large, rideable birds that serve as transportation in their respective worlds. Miss Valentine's birthday is approximately February 14th, Valentine's Day. Her alias and her power based on hearts and romance intentionally coincide with that date. In episode 12 of the anime Lucky Star, a cosplayer dressed as Nico Robin appears in the background. It's a fun Easter egg where a One Piece character makes an inadvertent cameo in another series. On one occasion, Monkey D. Garp ate 842 donuts in a row without sleeping or taking breaks. He did it with the intention of breaking a world record, demonstrating both his gluttony and determination in that curious challenge. The design of Bogard, the swordsman who is Garp's right-hand man, is based on a discarded sketch of Garp himself. In that preliminary design, Garp had a more serious look and wore a hat similar to the one Bogard eventually ended up wearing, so Oda recycled those ideas for Garp's lieutenant. Mr. 3, Galdino, celebrates his birthday on March 3rd, that is, the 3rd of the 3rd. This numerical date coincides with his alias and reinforces his theme centered around the number 3. The Golden Week is a holiday period in Japan when several holidays occur consecutively, hence the alias of Miss Golden Week, as her codename directly refers to this Japanese celebration. Bragi, the giant warrior of Elbaf, is 2,130 centimeters tall, and Drory is 2,260. Both are colossal even by giant standards, exceeding 22 meters in height. In an initial concept, Crocodile was going to be an extremely intelligent villain who would defeat his enemies through traps and riddles rather than brute force. Even in those early sketches, the claw of his hand was shaped like a question mark, reinforcing the idea of an enigmatic character focused on riddles. Originally, Mr. Shobun Clay was going to be part of a duo, following the typical structure of Baroque Works, a Mr. accompanied by a Miss. In this case, the pair would have been Mr. Chu along with Miss Oben, named after the Oben Festival, which is a traditional Japanese summer celebration. However, Oda ultimately decided that Mr. Cho would be a unique character combining both roles, which perfectly matched his Okama identity. Koromaramo, one of Walpole's henchmen, inspired Sanji to start calling Zoro Maramo upon seeing Koromaramo's spherical afro. Sanji came up with this nickname, which means moss ball, mocking Zoro's green hair. According to Oda, Dalton's favorite food is roasted chestnuts. As an additional curiosity, an American bison bull living in a zoo in Japan was named Dorudo in honor of Dalton. This animal became quite well known for being one of the few bison in Hokkaido until its death in October of 2020. In the world of One Piece, most humans can live up to about 140 years at most. However, Dr. Kureha is already 141 years old. Oda commented that Kureha has many years ahead because within the One Piece universe, she is practically a superhuman. Saturday Night Live is a famous American comedy show, and One Piece managed to sneak into it subtly in one of its sketches. You can see the Tony Chopper cushion on a sofa. Next to it, actor Jonah Hill. It's a small detail that shows the popularity of One Piece even outside of Japan. The shape of Dr. Hirolou's hairstyle and head is inspired by a medical cross. His hair styled in this way made his silhouette resemble a hospital cross, a visual nod fitting his role as an eccentric doctor. The poorly done fusion of Chess-Marino when Wapol merges Chess and Kumarino is a reference to the failed fusions in Dragon Ball. And in Dragon Ball, when two characters fuse incorrectly, the result is an individual with a comical appearance, similar to the strange appearance Chess-Marino obtained. Shaka represents the Jackal, one of the two guardian spirits of Arabasta, and Pearl represents the Falcon. Both are based on Egyptian deities. Shaka evokes Anubis, a god with a jackal head, and Pearl is inspired by Horus, a god with a falcon head. The name Nefertari Cobra, the king of Arabasta, seems to reference the king Cobra. His surname, Nefertari, is taken from Nefertari Merimut, the great royal wife of Pharaoh Ramses II. Thus, both his first name and his title allude to elements of Egyptian royalty. Portgas D. Ace obtained his devil fruit, the Maramara no Mi of fire. In a desperate situation, he and a companion were stranded on an island without food or hope. One day, a gigantic bird spat out a chest containing the fire fruit. On the brink of starvation, they decided to eat it to survive, and Ace was the first to taste it. In a matter of seconds, his body started to burn in flames upon activating the power of the fruit. The captain of a pirate crew that tried to plunder a city protected by crocodile is named Poo-Poo. His name is a Japanese onomatopoeia that mimics the sound of pigs, equivalent to oink oink, so his name would also be something like oink oink. This fact is hard to believe, but despite his central role in the events of the Arabasta arc, Koza never got to meet any of the Straw Hat Pirates in person during that saga. It is worth noting that Nico Robin was not yet part of the crew at that time, so even she did not interact with Koza in Arabasta. Matsuge, the camel that helps the Straw Hats in Arabasta, shares a voice actor with Usopp. Both characters are voiced by the Seiyukape Yamaguchi, an interesting fact that connects the sniper and the loyal camel. The leader of the band of kidnappers who tried to abduct Vivi in Arabasta is named Agatoji. His name means pointy chin, a description that directly alludes to his physical appearance. The code name for Mr. 4 was going to be Mr. Sunny Day. Oda planned to give it a more aggressive appearance under that name, before deciding on the design and name with which it finally appeared in the story. For the first time, the appearance of Mr. 1's devil fruit, the Supa Supa no Mi, which turns the body into steel, was revealed. Fans were able to see its design in official materials, satisfying their curiosity about how the fruit that gave Das Boot his powers looked. Miss Merry Christmas is the only female Zone Fruit user to appear in the series. Before her, all the characters with animal transformation fruits shown were men, so her debut marked the first woman with Zoan abilities in One Piece. Similarly, Lazo Mr. 4's Gundog is the first user of a devil fruit that is an inanimate object to be shown in the series. A bazooka that ate the Inu Inu no Mi, Dakshin model, thus acquiring the form and behavior of a dog. Miss Double Finger represents the new year, as her gesture of raising two fingers, the victory sign with both hands, symbolizes the date of January 1st. His codename alludes to 1111, the New Year's date, in line with the festive theme of the Baroque Works agents. A fan asked Oda how Mr. if he were promoted in rank, that is, if he became Mr. 6. Oda humorously responded by modifying the character's design, changing his eyebrows, sunglasses, mouth, and nose to form the number 6, thus showing a hypothetical version of Mr. 7 with the theme of 6. Mr. Love was one of the agents under Crocodile's orders. He was hopelessly in love with Miss Valentine, so much so that he designed a jacket with the phrase, "I heart Miss Valentine. I love Miss Valentine." This detail reflects his obsessive and comedic personality as a love-struck agent. Hina often plays heads or tails, flipping a coin with Smoker to decide which of the two will perform a certain task. Usually, she loses the toss and then exclaims her characteristic phrase, "Hina is upset," showing frustration. Terracotta, the head chef of the Arabasta Palace and wife of Igaram, shares a voice with her own husband, Igaram. That is to say, the same voice actor plays both Igaram and Terracotta, a curious case of double voice role. Nefertari Titi, Vivi's late mother, shares a name with a queen from Egyptian history named Titi. Queen Titi was both the wife and sister of Pharaoh Ramses III. The use of this name for the Queen of Arabasta reinforces the Egyptian inspiration of the Nefertari family. Dr. Toto is a doctor from Arabasta who runs an isolated clinic in the desert. He was the one who saved Pel's life after the explosion in Alubarna. He must be an incredible doctor. His name in Japanese means solitary, reflecting the remote location of his clinic and his secluded lifestyle. Attaché is a photojournalist for the Navy who previously headed the photography department for the bounty posters. He was in charge of taking most of the photos for the wanted posters, but he was fired due to his constant mistakes. One of his most memorable errors was in the photo for Sanji's first poster, where he forgot to remove the camera lens cap, resulting in a dark silhouette instead of Sanji's face. The inspiration for Bellamy's name comes from Samuel Black Sam Bellamy, a pirate from the 17th and 18th centuries, nicknamed the Prince of Pirates. In this way, Bellamy from One Piece carries the surname of a famous real corsair. An NPC character who appears among the crowd in Jaya when Bellamy throws a man out the window is named Okome. His name means rice in Japanese, alluding to the bowl of rice he carries on his head in that scene. Doc Q is inspired by the fourth horseman of the apocalypse, known as Death in the New Testament of the Bible. He is described as a thin figure riding a sickly pale horse and wielding a scythe in the style of the Grim Reaper, elements reflected in Doc Q's thematic appearance. Jesus Vargas's favorite food is protein. This suggests that his diet is based on very protein-rich foods to maintain his great physical strength. In the world of One Piece, there are no pirates with eye patches, despite being one of the most classic pirate stereotypes. Oda has explained that he reserved this iconic accessory for a special character who will appear in the final stretch of the series. Ironically, in the first sketches of Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard, he could be seen with a patch, although in the final design he does not have one. I think this character will end up wearing it. The appearance and abilities of Van Augur, Blackbeard's sniper, are inspired by Adolphus, a character from the movie The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. In the film, Adolphus is an exceptional marksman capable of hitting an apple from almost 100 kilometers away, a feat reflected in Van Augur's legendary aim. Oda revealed that he originally had the idea for Bartholomew Kuma to have a helm embedded in his head, although he ultimately discarded this element in the design of the Shichibukai, and this curious concept shows the extravagant initial ideas he considered for the character. Don Quixote Doflamingo's sunglasses are based on the eyes of the Japanese superhero Kamen Rider Super 1. That's why they have such a peculiar and futuristic design, inspired by the composite visor of the tokusatsu character. A fan asked Oda if the limb of Jozu, the commander of Whitebeard's 3rd Division who has a diamond body, was also made of diamond. Oda, faithful Velasomor responded that yes, indeed, everything in Joshu turns into diamond thanks to his power. The recurring joke of comparing Marco, the commander of Whitebeard, to a pineapple has a linguistic basis. In ancient Japanese, there was a term for pineapple, which was ori, which could literally be translated as phoenix pear, linking it to the phoenix fruit that Marco has. This pun alludes to Marco's abilities to transform into a phoenix and explains the nod to calling him Pineapple Head because of his hairstyle. In the Universal Studios Japan Park, a replica of Ace and Whitebeard's graves was built. Fans can visit this themed memorial inside the park, which recreates the cemetery scene in a moving way. Sengoku joined the Marine Infantry around the same time as Monkey D, Garp, and Tsuru 56 years ago. One of the reasons Sengoku was appointed Fleet Admiral was his great tactical skill, as he managed to thwart numerous pirate attacks thanks to his strategic intelligence. Tsuru, the veteran Vice Admiral, is considered the strongest woman in the Navy. Despite her advanced age, her power and experience place her as one of the most influential and capable female figures within the organization. The 5 Elders of the Gorosei are based on figures of historically influential leaders. Each one has an appearance that reflects wisdom and power, with a serious and authoritative demeanor, evoking statesmen or renowned elder figures worldwide. Lafette is inspired by Baron Samedi, the spirit of death and resurrection in the voodoo tradition. This is reflected in his appearance, a very pale man with a top hat and mysterious behavior, similar to a zombie, very much in line with the iconography of Baron Samedi. The voice actor for Pierre, the gunfolk bird horse in Skypiea, is Kazuya Nakai, who interestingly is also the voice of Roronoa Zoro. It is an interesting fact that the noises and sounds of Pierre come from the same voice actor who plays Zoro. A fan asked Oda what Wiper wears under his Shandian warrior skirt, that is, if he goes commando or not. Oda humorously implied that yes, Wiper does not wear underwear under his skirt, suggesting that he indeed has nothing underneath. Chu, the little Cloud Fox companion of Connis and Skypiea, shares a voice actress with Nami. The Seiyu Akemi Okamura provides the voice for both Nami and the adorable Cloud Pet, connecting both characters through her voice. Due to the musical abilities Connis shows in Skypiea by playing the harp and singing, many fans once believed that she would be the musician to join Luffy's crew before Brook appeared in the story, as there was a theory among the fandom that Connis could take on the role of the musician with the Straw Hats. The design of Gadatsu, one of Enel's priests, is inspired by the late rapper Coolio. His hairstyle with braids pointing upwards is reminiscent of the characteristic style Coolio sported in the 1990s. The names of the 4 priests of Skypiea have religious or spiritual connotations. Om is a sacred syllable and fundamental mantra in Hinduism and other Indian religions. Satori is a term from Zen Buddhism that means enlightenment or awakening in some Buddhist traditions. Shura refers to a conflict or battle, symbolically the internal struggle of the mind. Issa, whose name is written the same as Isa in the transcription, is associated with the meaning of mother or goddess in certain contexts, although in the story it is simply the name of the Shandian girl. Isa is the youngest known person to possess emission haki. Since she was a child, she demonstrated the ability to sense the voices or presences of other beings, indicating that she awakened that type of haki at an early age. Enel's famous surprised face with an open mouth and wide eyes is inspired by the sculpture of a cave called Goa Gajah in Indonesia. The entrance of that cave has a face carved with a very exaggerated expression, very similar to the comical incredulous grimace that Enel shows in the series. Nola, the great snake of Skypiea, is inspired by Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of mythology. Mesoamerican. Its enormous size and mystical role are reminiscent of this deity, giving a mythological background to the creature of the upper yard. The name Moblin Noland is a play on words with no land. This possibly alludes to the fact that the island of Shandora, which he traveled to in his stories, disappeared into the sky, leaving Noland without the land he was seeking, as no one believed in its existence. In the Japanese manga, when Foxy performs an attack with his Noro Noro no Mi power, the text of the onomatopoeias appears shaded and blurrier than usual. The exact reason behind this unusual format is unknown, but it could be a stylistic effect to visually convey the temporal distortion caused by his ability to slow things down. Tanji, the elderly nomad from Long Ring Long Land, is clearly inspired by the customs of the nomadic peoples of Mongolia. His clothing, his lifestyle with a horse, Shelly, and his home in the yurt remind us of the culture of the Mongols on the steppes. Admiral Kuzan Aokiji was modeled in appearance after the Japanese actor Yusaku Matsuda. Kuzan's relaxed attitude and some facial features reflect the image of this famous actor, whom Oda used as a reference. Kokoro, the elderly mermaid of Water 7, was originally planned to be a male character. Oda finally decided to make her an elderly mermaid woman, but that late change explains why Kokoro has some unfeminine traits and a very easygoing personality. Hattori, Rob Lucci's pet pigeon, is 20 years old. That age is practically impossible to reach in any real pigeon species, making it an extraordinary creature in the world of One Piece. In an initial concept, Iceberg was going to have a quite different appearance. He was shown as a man with a more severe expression, wearing glasses and a shirt with the image of an adorable teddy bear, along with pants with a floral pattern. This humorous contrast in his clothing did not make it to the final version, in which Iceberg dresses more formally. Tyrannosaurus is the name of Iceberg's pet. It is called that because when it stands on two legs, its posture resembles that of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This amusing detail explains the peculiar name of the little rodent. In one of the early designs of Kaku, the CP9 member, this character had a normal nose instead of the rectangular nose that eventually appeared in the series. Oda decided to exaggerate the size and shape of Kaku's nose in the final design, giving him that unique appearance that characterizes him. Oda jokingly drew Khalifa, an agent of CP9, as if she had eaten the giraffe fruit instead of Kaku. In that humorous sketch, Khalifa transforms into a giraffe woman, showing how she would have looked if she had obtained the ability that Kaku received in the actual story. The appearance of Lulu, carpenter of Galela, might be inspired by the legendary musician Freddie Mercury, leader of the band Queen. His mustache, hairstyle, and poses slightly remind one of the artist, which could be an intentional homage or a funny coincidence. If Rob Lucci were not an agent of the Cyberpol, he would have been a pigeon breeder. Oda commented on this curious fact about possible alternative versions of the characters, which fits perfectly with Lucci given his close bond with the pigeon Hattori. In the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, an American shot putter struck Frankie Super's iconic pose after completing one of his throws. This amusing moment caught the attention of fans as they saw a One Piece gesture at a global sporting event. Mozu and Kiwi, the square-haired sisters of the Dogwan, have to walk sideways when there is strong wind. This is because their square hairstyles act like sails. If they face the wind head-on, they could literally be blown away, so they walk sideways to avoid it. Tom, the master carpenter, man and fish, is a fishman of the horned boxfish species. In nature, this type of fish can secrete toxins to defend itself, but it is clear that Tom does not have this ability. Despite belonging to a poisonous species, Tom is devoid of venom, perhaps due to his peaceful nature. The mask that Spandam wears is identical to that of WWE professional wrestler Mankind, who is also known as Mick Foley. This brown leather accessory covering his face is a clear nod to the world of professional wrestling. Funk Freed's birthday, Spandam's elephant sword, is the 28th of April, which coincidentally coincides with World Elephant Day. This fun detail links the commemorative birth date with its identity. Originally, Jabra, agent of CP9, was going to be named Shaken. In the initial sketches, he was much thinner and taller, with a very striking haircut, and it was planned for him to use some type of longsword. Finally, Oda changed his design to the burly hand-to-hand fighter Jabra we know. T-Bone, the marine captain known as the Ship Cutter, is vegan, and detests that people have to kill animals for food. Ironically, his own name refers to a cut of meat, the T-bone steak, which creates a comedic contrast with his personal convictions. The appearance of Kashi, one of the giant guardians of Enies Lobby, is a tribute to Yule, sometimes romanized as Yuri, a character from the animated series Vicky the Viking. For his part, Oimo also seems to reference Snorre, another character from that same series. These nods highlight the inspiration from Viking culture that surrounds all the giants in One Piece. Catherine, called Gathering in some texts, is a waitress at the Annie's Lobby Cafe. Jabra had a romantic relationship with her, but Catherine left him when Rob Lucci returned, as she hoped to become Lucci's girlfriend. The favorite food of the giant jaguar D. Saul is roasted whales. It seems that this exiled vice admiral enjoys an uncommon dish in his diet, grilled whale meat. When the updated bounty poster for Nico Robin was released after Ennie's Lobby, her photograph closely resembled that of her mother, Nico Olvia. This similarity in the image of poses and features made many notice this parallel between mother and daughter, intentional or not. Brooke's favorite dish is barbecue, grilled meat in barbecue style, even though Brooke is a skeleton who cannot really digest food. According to Oda, this would be the dish he would most enjoy if he could eat. Perona has her own personal Jolly Roger, a pirate flag with her emblem. After the events of Thriller Bark, Nami was seen wearing a t-shirt with Perona's Jolly Roger. It is possible that Nami borrowed or stole that t-shirt from Perona's room after taking off the wedding dress she wore during the arc. In Thriller Bark, the cowardly trio of Usopp, Nami, and Chopper saw a strange zombie lion with a human face. Later, Oda stated that the human face the lion had was actually Absalom's true face, projected thanks to his invisibility ability. Dr. Hogback is inspired by the character Charles Beaumont from the movie White Zombie. In that movie, Beaumont resorts to voodoo powers to gain a woman's love, which ends up causing his zombification. This plot has parallels with Hogback, who also uses those macabre methods, the zombies, due to a love obsession. Sindri, being a zombie servant obsessed with breaking plates, is similar. To Okiku, a vengeful spirit from the Japanese legend Bancho Sarayashiki. Both first appear coming out of a well and share the strange obsession with counting and, in Sindri's case, breaking plates. Gyoro, Nin, and Bao, the three zombie children minions of Mariah in Thriller Bark, could be a reference to Lock, Shock, and Barrel from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Like the mischievous henchmen of Oogie Boogie in that movie, Gyoro, Nin, and Bao are three children who work as a team for a villain, sharing a similar dynamic. The way Gecko Moria extracts the shadows of his victims by cutting them as if they were pieces of cloth from their feet is a reference to Peter Pan's shadow. In the classic story, Peter Pan's shadow is independent and has to be sewn back to his feet, a concept Oda pays homage to with the way Moria manipulates shadows. At some point, Captain John managed to accumulate a huge amount of treasures as a pirate. However, when he decided to keep all the loot instead of sharing it with his crew, his subordinates mutinied and stabbed him several times in the chest, causing his death. Ors was approximately 67 meters tall. This ancient giant was enormous, even compared to other giants in the series. A fan asked Oda what would happen if Lola ate the Sube no Mi, the fruit of life that makes one slippery and beautiful. Oda responded by drawing Lola under the effects of that fruit, imagining her with a radically stylized and slippery appearance due to the power of the Sube. The fact that Duval uses an iron mask to hide his face ironically reflects Sanji's story, who was forced by his family to wear an iron mask as a child. Both characters share the experience of hiding their identity behind a metal mask, although for very different reasons. The arms of Macro, a Fishman captain of a band from the East Blue, both for their muscular form and the anchor tattoo he has, resemble those of Popeye the Sailor. Additionally, both Macro and Popeye have a very pronounced jaw, a distinctive physical trait they share. Bart had a somewhat different appearance in the initial sketches. Initials of Oda. In those preliminary designs, he had a strangely shaped jaw and a much more pronounced scar on his face, and he was completely bald. Overall, he looked different from the final design. In the early sketches, Shalria, a Tenryubito, had her hair styled differently from the standard style usually worn by the world nobles. His preliminary design showed a unique hairstyle, but Oda ultimately chose to give him the typical elevated hair look inside a helmet that the other celestial dragons share. The linear marks on Basil Hawkins' face are not tattoos, they are actually his eyebrows. The character has blonde eyebrows styled in such a way that they look like drawings on his face, a design detail that might go unnoticed at first glance. The back of Beppo's head, Law's companion, can be seen peeking out in the lower corner of Trafalgar Law's wanted poster. This is similar to when Usopp appeared hidden in Luffy's first wanted poster as a photobomb. These are small Easter eggs that Oda includes in the wanted posters. As a child, Eustace Kid was in love with a girl named Victoria. On that island where he grew up, Kid led one of the 4 youth gangs along with Killer, Kid, and Wire, each controlling a district. After the murder of Victoria by a rival gang, Kid unified the 4 groups under his command and defeated those responsible. Then he decided to form his small pirate crew and named his ship Victoria Punk in honor of that girl who was his first love. If Jewelry Bonnie were not a pirate, she would own a pizzeria. This was mentioned by Oda when imagining alternative professions for the Supernovas, possibly inspired by Bonnie's great appetite and love for food. At 42 years old and 1.66 meters in height, Capone Gang Beg is the shortest and the second oldest among all the Supernovas of the worst generation. The pirate mobster stands out for being quite short compared to his companions, and is only surpassed in age by Urouge. Oda confessed that he chose the name Killer, the pirate allied with Kid, purely and simply out of laziness. That is, there is no deep meaning behind Killer's nickname, beyond sounding striking. The author admitted that in this case, the name does not hide any special mystery. Scratchman Apu's birthday is March 19th, a date known in Japan as Music Day. This is a nod to his musical abilities, as he plays his own body like instruments, associating his birth with the musical celebration. Oda described the relationship between Silver's Rayleigh and Shaki as a deep friendship and not as a romantic couple, despite living together in the Sabaody archipelago. The author clarified that they are united by camaraderie and a shared past rather than a romantic bond, and as of the date of recording this, we are seeing God Valley and we are seeing the relationship between these two. Oda humorously commented that Urouge's weapon is a giant pencil. This detail is not canonical in the story, but an idea from the author, fitting with Urouge's peculiar personality, the Mad Monk. If X-Drake were not a pirate, he would be a zookeeper. This is how Oda responded when imagining a civilian profession for Drake, possibly alluding to his dinosaur theme, since Drake possesses the Allosaurus fruit and would have an affinity for dealing with large animals. The curious thing is that later he was in Kaido's crew, that is, a zoo, when Kizaru makes his spectacular entrance in the Sabaody archipelago riding on a cannonball. It is a reference to the movie The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. In that film, the Baron travels mounted on a cannonball, and Oda recreated that extravagant scene with Admiral Kizaru. Sentomaru's design is heavily based on Kentaro, a hero from Japanese folklore. Sentomaru wears an apron with the kanji gold, just like the breastplate Kentaro wears, and shares the robust build and legendary stature of the strong child from the legends. Initially, Margaret, the Kuja warrior friend of Luffy, was going to have the Neko Neko no Mi Black Cat model. Oda considered giving a cat fruit to this character during the Amazon Lily arc, although that idea ultimately did not make it into the published story. Boa Hancock is, according to Oda, the human character he finds most difficult to draw. Her great beauty and design details, such as the changing expressions between haughty and in love, require a lot of effort, making the drawing more challenging for the mangaka. Panda Woman is the female version of Panda Man, who occasionally appears as a cameo. She is in love with Panda Man, although she does not know if that love is reciprocated. It is another of the inside jokes that Oda hides among the crowds of One Piece. The name Domino, the chief jailer of Impel Down, derives from the Latin term dominus, which refers to someone who exercises control over others. It is an appropriate name given her position of authority in the prison. The favorite dishes of Magellan, the chief of Impel Down, are poison soup and pufferfish sashimi, fugu with all its poison. Both are dangerous foods. One is literally toxic and the other is a delicacy that, if prepared incorrectly, becomes poisonous. This fits perfectly with Magellan's poisonous theme. 2 years after his arrest, Arlong found out that his former captain Jinbei had joined the Straw Hat Pirates. Upon learning this, he reacted with disbelief and fury, showing a shocked expression at the idea that Jinbei now sails under Luffy's command. In his initial sketches, Shiki, the Golden Lion, was drawn with facial features more similar to a real lion. His mane and initial features were even more feline, although in the final design they were softened a bit, retaining his lion detail. Indigo, the scientist of Shiki's crew, wears a scarf that always seems to float around him. According to Oda, the reason that scarf remains suspended is that it has a hidden wire inside that holds it, giving it that anti-gravity appearance. Doja Tenkan is a giant prisoner who appears in Impel Down. His name is a play on words with a Japanese phrase that means, "How did I get here?" It's an inside joke about his situation as a prisoner, as if even he doesn't know how he ended up locked in the great underwater prison. Sal Death, the chief of the demon guards of Impel Down, as a child used to order his dog to bite those he considered criminals. This cruel behavior from his childhood reflects his sadistic personality and distorted sense of justice even from an early age. Dane is a commodore of the Navy who led the team sent to Impel Down to capture Luffy during the war. He is sadly famous because he was one of only 3 characters who received 0 votes in the worldwide top 100 popularity poll, organized to commemorate the 1000th chapter of the manga, in which more than 12 million voters from around the world participated. The original voice actor for Emporio Ivankov was arrested in 2010 for posting nude photos on the internet. In fact, Oda was physically inspired by this seiyuu, known for his extravagance, to create Ivankov's appearance. After the legal incident, the character kept his appearance, but obviously the voice actor was changed. Originally, it was planned for Inazuma to have the powers of a crab zone fruit. This initial concept was discarded, and in the final version, Inazuma possesses the Choki Choki fruit of the scissors. But it's interesting to know that he could have been a crab man at some point in development. The sarcastic apology Shiryu gives to the guards he knocks down and Impel down is actually an old Japanese expression referring to a samurai's right to kill a lower class person who compromises his honor. Basically, Shiryu apologizes for exercising that right, highlighting his cruelty. The devil fruit that Blamenko, Whitebeard's commander, possesses is the Poke Poke no Mi, the pocket fruit which allows him to create pockets within his own body to store things. Odi stated that if Usopp were to have a devil fruit, it would be precisely that one, as it would fit his style. Usopp always carries many tools and gadgets that he could pull out from those pockets. Avalo Pizarro's name seems to derive from the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro. This historical nod aligns with the theme of pirates and conquerors surrounding Kurohige's crew, linking the corrupt king with a famous real-life explorer. Oda stated that he purposely removed Katarina Devon's beauty because Blackbeard's crew has a much more classic pirate style. Big, rough, and vulgar. He said that a beautiful woman would ruin that atmosphere on Teach's ship. That's why he portrayed Devon as a terrible looking prisoner instead of attractive. At 99 years old, Sanjuan Wolf is the oldest member of the Blackbeard Pirates. This colossal giant far surpasses his companions in age, being practically an elder among the crew. According to Oda, Vasco Shot has the longest nose of any character introduced so far. This pirate from Blackbeard's crew boasts a disproportionately large nasal appendage, even bigger than that of other characters famous for their noses, like Usopp. Dogra, one of the mountain bandits from the Dodon family, has been seen in appearances after the time skip, wearing replicas of both Luffy's straw hat and Sabo's top hat. This detail, shown in covers and extras, pays tribute to his former comrades, Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, whom Dogra and Magra helped raise. In an initial concept, Curly Dodon was going to be a man and also a pipe smoker. Initially, he imagined the leader of the mountain bandits of Goa as a typical male bandit, but then he changed his mind and turned her into the maternal yet tough female figure we know. The voice actress who played Sabo as a child when he was 10 years old is Junko Takeuchi, known for being the voice of Naruto Uzumaki in the Naruto series. It's an interesting fact that Sabo's child voice comes from the same person who brings another famous young anime character to life. All the pacifists are exactly 689 centimeters tall. This uniformity in their dimensions makes them imposing and easily recognizable on the battlefield. Oda jokingly signed with Tsurume, Luffy's gigantic kraken friend, that enough takoyaki could be cooked for 1,250,000 people. This occurrence highlights the enormous size of the giant squid, imagining it as a colossal ingredient for the popular octopus dish. Wadatsumi is the largest fishman seen to date, with a height close to 80 meters. This gigantic member of the Sun Pirates is even taller than Oars and other colossal beings in the series. A fan, knowing that sharks usually have 2 reproductive organs, asked Oda if Hody Jones had 2, you know. Oda replied that yes, Hody indeed has 2, applying the real biology of sharks to the great white shark fishman. Madame Charlie, the fortune-telling mermaid, is Arlong's half-sister. They share a father, a shark, but not the same mother, which makes them half-siblings. This familial detail adds an interesting connection between the calm Charlie and the violent Arlong. Shirahoshi was drawn on a special occasion by Kohei Horikoshi, the manga author of My Hero Academia. He illustrated the mermaid princess in his own style as a tribute, showing an artistic crossover between the 2 popular series. Otohime shares her name with a sea goddess from Japanese mythology, the daughter of the ocean dragon god, Ryujin. Similarly, her husband Neptune is named after the Roman god of the sea. Both monarchs of Fishman Island reflect the marine and mythological theme in their names. Big Mom kidnapped her 43 husbands husbands solely to have children with them and then abandoned them. Charlotte Linlin only sought to expand her large family with offspring of various races without maintaining any relationship with the biological fathers after conceiving. Charlotte Pudding's birthday is June 25th, a date known in Japan as Pudding Day. This fits perfectly with her name and theme, puddings, as it means, well, pudding, showing Oda's fondness for wordplay even in dates. Kinemon's name was taken from Oda's favorite Japanese actor, named Nakamura Kinosuke. This famous film and kabuki theater actor left such an impression on Oda that he decided to honor him by naming the samurai Foxfire with a very similar name. Caesar Clown is darkly inspired by Joseph Mengele, the infamous doctor who conducted inhumane human experiments. Like Mengele, Caesar conducts atrocious experiments on children and innocent people, though with a friendly facade, giving them sweets and acting supposedly kind, showing a lack of empathy and extreme cruelty. Monet's monstrous form, when she reveals her full harpy aspect, is based on a Yuki, a female snow spirit from Japanese folklore. Her pale, icy, and seemingly ghostly appearance is reminiscent of this legendary figure that lures travelers in snowstorms. Oda revealed in the manga what the faces of the Yeti Cool brothers, the mysterious giant assassins of Punk Hazard, look like. In an illustration published later, the true faces of Rock and Scotch can be seen without their suits, confirming their appearance after the suspense maintained in the arc. Kazuki Momonosuke's favorite food is oden, a traditional Japanese stew. This is significant since Oden is also the name of his legendary father, which is likely not a coincidence and serves as an endearing nod to his lineage. The original concept of Pika showed a slightly different design than what we finally saw. In preliminary sketches, Oda experimented with different proportions and facial elements for this colossal commander of Doflamingo before arriving at the final appearance. Isho Fujitora's appearance is inspired by the late Japanese actor Shintaro Katsu, specifically in his role as the blind swordsman Zatoichi, hence his demeanor, closed eyes, and calm demeanor despite his blindness, paying tribute to this iconic character of Japanese cinema. As a one-legged toy soldier, Kiros resembles the protagonist of the tale, the steadfast tin soldier. Like the character from Hans Christian Andersen's story, Kiros loses a leg and continues to fight bravely, reflecting that spirit of perseverance and sacrifice. Cavendish owes his name to Thomas Cavendish, an English navigator, explorer, and privateer from the 16th century. This homage fits with Cavendish's pirate knight theme, giving him an aristocratic and adventurous air linked to a true historical privateer. On the cover of chapter 1021 of the manga, there is an illustration imagining what the reunion between Frankie and Mr. Pink would be like. And although this does not happen in the main story, Oda drew both characters sharing drinks and tears, suggesting they would understand each other due to their tragic experiences as tough men with an emotional past. It is not explicitly stated in the manga, but Oda explained outside the story that Don Quixote do Flamingo probably had a romantic relationship with Viola, the Princess of Rosa. This unofficial detail suggests that there was more than just a mere alliance of convenience between them during Doflamingo's rule in Dressrosa. Bartolomeo the Cannibal's nickname is actually a play on words. In Japanese, the expression commerce a alguien, hito oku, also means to mock or tease someone. Thus, cannibal refers both to the ferocity of literally devouring, which is just a rumor in his case, and to his attitude of eating people in a figurative sense, that is, laughing at them or looking down on them. When a fan asked if Rebecca wore underwear beneath her gladiator armor, given how revealing her outfit was, Oda said he had an idea about it but refused to give a concrete answer, leaving the mystery and playing with the reader's imagination on this detail. Don Quixote Rocinante, Corazon, is extremely tall, reaching 293 centimeters in height. At almost 3 meters, this undercover agent was even much taller than many gigantic pirates, highlighting his imposing presence alongside Doflamingo. The design of Zunesha, the giant elephant island of Zu, is inspired by the painting The Elephants by the Spanish artist Salvador Dalí. In this surrealist work, the elephants appear with incredibly long and thin legs, evoking a fantastic image that Oda captured by presenting Zunesha as an ancient colossus with extremely long limbs. Carrot's behavior is typically that of a rabbit. Besides her liking for carrots, she loves having her head petted and is very energetic and bouncy. This reflects how real rabbits need space to move and play and enjoy attention, traits that Carrot adorably exhibits in her mink personality. Nekomamushi's design and love for lasagna are similar to that of the famous cat from the comic strip Garfield. The feline mink shares with Garfield that taste for lasagna and a certain good-natured laziness, which seems like an intentional nod from Oda to popular culture. Kaido's hobby is trying to take his own life. The Yonko is known as the strongest creature in the world, but he gets bored with life because he can't find a rival who can defeat him. So he has attempted to take his own life on multiple occasions, by throwing himself from stratospheric heights, for example, all without success. In the third volume of the One Piece magazine, the early sketches of Yonji Vinsmoke were revealed. In these designs, he almost looked identical to Sanji and carried a sword. This was before Oda gave him his final distinct appearance, with his characteristic green tuft and technological gear. Similarly, initial sketches of Ichiji were also shown that, although different, retained the essence of the design that ended up in the manga. The name Charlotte Brûlée is based on the dessert crème brûlée, a custard with burnt caramel. This association follows the tradition of the Charlotte family, whose members usually have names of sweets and desserts, reflecting Big Mom's obsession with sweet food. But originally, she did not have her tongue constantly out in her initial design, and moreover, had much more hair on her head. In her final version, Oda gave her this more eccentric look with the protruding tongue and a cropped mane, emphasizing her twisted personality. Charlotte Cracker's biscuit soldiers might be a reference to the gingerbread man from fairy tales. Just like the living cookies in that children's story, Cracker animates the warrior cookies to fight for him, which fits with the Living Sweets theme of Whole Cake Island. The original design of Charlotte Katakuri was very different from what we finally saw. In initial concepts, Katakuri had a look much more similar to that of his siblings, less unique clothing and less serious features, before Oda decided to give him the imposing look with a scarf, scar, and hidden jaw that characterizes him. Big News Morgans is actually not a natural bird, but a human who ate the Tori Tori no Mi albatross model. That's why he can switch between his human form and his albatross form. This detail explains his appearance as a giant talking bird, as he is a Zoan user. Oda experimented with various types of Zoan fruits for Stussy, the CP0 people infiltrated in Tontan. Among the options he considered were several bird models, cat models, and even a panda. Finally, in the story, it was revealed that Stussy has a mythical Zoan of a vampire bat, but those early sketches show the different animal ideas that were considered for her. Charlotte Smoothie was initially going to possess a fruit called Shiru Shiru no Mi, the juice fruit, which would allow her to squeeze liquids from living beings. Later, Oda considered another variant called QQ no Mi, also related to squeezing, before deciding on the squeezing abilities we finally saw in the story. In any case, the concept of Smoothie always revolved around extracting juices from people and things. In real life, sumo wrestlers are prohibited from having tattoos to keep their bodies pure, according to tradition. This rule apparently is not followed in Wano, as Mishima, the sumo wrestler from Bakura, has visible tattoos on his body. It's a small liberty that Oda took when designing this character, deviating from the strict rule of real sumo. Hold'em's design is based on Daltanius, the main character of the anime Daltanium, the robot of the future, which Oda watched as a child. In fact, many of the designs of the Smile users in Wano arose from Oda's desire to pay tribute to that mecha anime from his childhood. For example, Hold'em, with his lion theme and technological elements, is reminiscent of the lion robots from those classic series. Speed, the horsewoman of the Smile Squad, had an initial design very similar to the final one, but with some notable differences. Initially, she was going to carry a sword, her hairstyle was going to be even wilder, and her outfit was going to be even more revealing. Finally, those elements were adjusted, but her basic concept of a fast female centaur was maintained. The execution of Kazuki Oden is very similar to that of the legendary Japanese outlaw Ishikawa Goemon. Goemon was condemned to be boiled alive in a cauldron in the 16th century, and, according to legend, managed to save his son by holding him above his head while he died. Oden endured being boiled alive in oil while holding his 9 vassals on his shoulders, saving them at the cost of his own life. A fan asked Oda if Shinobu was inspired by Jane, a character from the manga series Jungle King Tarchan, created by one of his mentors, Masaya Tokuhiro. However, Oda revealed that Shinobu's design was originally based on the Japanese comedian and actress Naomi Watanabe. That's where her curvy figure and some comedic traits of her personality come from. Despite the mask covering his mouth, the pirate of Kaido's crew can eat by making a beak appear from inside the mask. Basically, his anatomy allows him to extend a structure similar to a pteranodon's beak to ingest food without removing the mask. Queen, Kaido's commander, is reminiscent in design of the character Obelix from the Franco-Belgian comic Asterix. His corpulence, mustache, and braids, as well as his jovial personality, echo the endearing Gallic boar hunter, although Queen is much more eccentric and dangerous. Kurozumi Orochi's favorite foods are Yashiori sake and Pacific mackerel. Ironically, practically, the sake yasuri is a fictional drink from Japanese mythology used to intoxicate and defeat the legendary monster Yamata no Orochi, the creature that inspired Orochi's devil fruit. This connection adds a poetic nod. Orochi loves a sake that in the legend is used to defeat the beast, whose power he himself possesses. Page 1 had alternative design concepts revealed in his living mask. In one of them, he was taller and lankier, and in another, he appeared wearing sunglasses. Finally, his design in the manga shows a burly Page 1 of standard height for a Tobi Roppo and without glasses, but it is interesting to see the variations considered. Yamato seems to be inspired by Oscar-Francois de Jarget, the protagonist of the shoujo manga The Rose of Versailles. Like Oscar, Yamato is a woman raised as a man by her father to assume an important role. In this case, Yamato was treated as Kaido's heir. This reference is seen in her warrior-like demeanor, her determination, and the conflict between the imposed identity and her own. Originally, it was planned for Black Maria to have a zone-type devil fruit, ancient Stegosaurus model. Oda considered giving her the ability to transform into an armored dinosaur, but ultimately chose to give her the mythical fan of the Spider-Woman, the Kumo Kumo no Mi, Rosa McDale model that we see in the Wano arc. In a magazine version of Chapter 1012, there is an error where Ulti's mask briefly disappears, and her mouth is visible while she attacks Big Mom. This oversight was corrected in volume 100 of the manga, where the mask stays in place as it should. It is one of those details that are polished in the edition of the collected volume. In Greek mythology, Hera is the goddess of women, marriage, family, and childbirth, as well as being the sister and wife of Zeus. Big Mom named her new climate power Homie Hera, which aligns with the theme of naming her main homies after deities, Zeus, Prometheus, or Hera. And in this particular case, it gives an ironic touch, since Hera and Zeus are the couple from mythology. Uta, the diva protagonist of One Piece film, Red, was created because Oda wanted a woman to star in the movie. Unlike the latest film releases where the main character had always been an older man, with Uta, Shanks' daughter, the spotlight was given to this young idol, changing the usual dynamic of One Piece films. The favorite drink of S-Hawk, the Seraphim based on Dracule Mihawk, is grape juice, which is basically the non-alcoholic version of Mihawk's favorite red wine. This detail connects the young clone with its original counterpart, reflecting their tastes appropriately for their youthful age. The initial design of Lilith, the evil facet of Vegapunk, included a jet propulsion system on her back. Finally, this jetpack ended up with Atlas, another of Vegapunk's satellites, while Lilith was left without it in the final version, thus distributing the gadgets among the different versions of Vegapunk. The initial design of Atlas, the violent facet of Vegapunk, lacked the jetpack that it carries in the final version. Instead, Atlas wore a cape and a helmet with integrated goggles similar to the pair Lilith wears. These elements were later modified, giving Atlas the jetpack that was originally intended for Lilith. Edison, the thinking facet of Vegapunk, was going to have a mustache in his initial designs. In the end, it was decided not to include this mustache in his final appearance, but it's a nice nod knowing they could have given him an even more classic inventor look with a mustache in the style of Edison. Dr. Vegapunk, the main body, had a couple of different designs before his official presentation. In one of them, he looked quite similar to the final version, but with a lit bulb over his head instead of the apple he currently has. In another sketch, he had a quite different appearance. He wore a long, wide jacket and had a device like a cap on his head. Ultimately, Oda explored various looks before arriving at the eccentric Vegapunk with a thought bulb head that we saw in the story. And that would be all the curiosities of all the One Piece characters. This video does not yet cover the Elbaf arc, as many characters are still being introduced. So when we move forward a couple more arcs, I will update this video and include all the remaining characters. But to tell you that if you liked this video, remember you can leave a big like and subscribe to the channel to see more videos. It would help me a lot if you share it and leave in the comments anything you liked about the video or any curiosity that caught your attention.